Hello, everybody. This is Shuko. I'm the leader of Virtuous Saints and the Tenacity link shells on the Siren server. We are going to be looking over one of our runs from the Tenacity shell, which is the harder endgame content focus shell. And we're going into Dynamis, Divergence, Sandoria. And this is a completion run with a few technical little problems that happen throughout it that we will go into. But assuming you avoid at least a few of these technical problems, you will get through the end with success. And we'll discuss some of the things that go on as it starts. But I am a white mage through this. I have a lot of jobs, levels, and roles, so I could talk on a lot of them. But in particular, I'm going to be speaking on the healing role, and I'll make some comments about the core things that are happening from other people as we go along. So the run starts, everybody's here, all 18 people. The parties are assembled to be 2 DPS parties and 1 tank party. The tank party consists of 2 tanks. I prefer paladins at the moment to the modern meta in 2021. However, there's a lot of link shells that are still set up with ring fencers. Ring fencers are more than fine. A little bit more work for the healer, but it's more than acceptable as long as they know what they're doing and they're very well geared. It wouldn't pose an issue. The DPS parties, on the other hand, we need to at least have a bard and a corsair in each party. A geomancer I have in the tank party to do geomancy, and I know there is a 75% nerf to NM types. However, even with that being considered, that stacked with red mage enfeebles and all the enfeebles taking place from the other players, it's worth it. It all adds up to be very effective, and every little bit of evasion down counts. So as we load in, everybody's kind of starts buffs, gets ready. Corsair is going to try to prepare to take out statues in one shot. This usually happens through Wizard's roll, or if I'm misnaming that, it's the magic attack up roll, Warlock's roll, or Tactician roll. Really depends on how well your gear set is for it. Essentially, you can abuse the double darkness weather through a Hotcher and Obi that you get from C, and force the bonus from the double darkness and get really nice numbers out of that in Salute with a good magic attack bonus focus gun. So I'm poking my camera around trying to see if any of these could be sneaky with Oryx, and it looks like the left one is fine, so I call the left one out. Okay, so at this point the Corsair takes the shot and it's good, so I run through and prepare for the T1 fight, which is located at the entrance to North Sandy. Now, like I said with Darkness prior, the statue is very weak to magic, and there's double darkness weather, so the skill chain I call out is darkness based. Paladins can do CDC, and then light it into wildfire makes a double darkness. So we set that up, and the mages are prepared in Ninja to hit on it. We usually take this out in 2 volleys or 3 volleys. Volley being, the 3-step skill chain. And all the magic bursts that follow. CDC. And to Leaden. Takes out a good 20% of its health. All the bursts get it to about 60. And then Wildfire brings it on even longer. Taking out well more than half of its health. And then they get ready to prepare for the next volley. Now, your results may vary depending on the strengths of your Corsair and mages, but this process, rinse, wash, repeat, will get you the win. You just want to keep your melees off, feeding TP, get enfeebles on it heavily, and just prepare for blasting. You'll notice that I haven't had to cast a single heal yet. So the lesson here is so everybody knows their roles. No healing is necessary after this point. If something goes wrong, you'll see me have to cast this. Prepare for the shift to the T2. Now this one I call for a normal pull, and we use a technique called a bogey. This is where we keep one target alive for the Corsair to gather TP on and take additional shots and hopefully pick off a couple of statues for free, and we won't have to fight through the whole crowd as we fight through the T2 location. So I'll have to do a little bit of healing at this point. Things to keep in mind will be your Corsair. If there's a failed shot, your Corsair will die incredibly quickly, but you can save them with the Stone Skin Cure if you're quick enough. You also want to keep your tank in mind, depending on how sturdy they are. And you might have a troublesome DPS that has a tendency to do too much damage too quickly. Big ailments to keep off are going to be paralyze, sleep, obviously. There are some that are less priority. I tend to leave poison on because it keeps people awake if the poison isn't too strong. So you'll see here that he had a failed pull, and unfortunately the cure did not go through in time, so he died. So rise time for him, save 2 minutes. But unfortunately, stuff gets resisted sometimes. Good ways to avoid that is to make sure your magic accuracy is high as possible, but you gotta find a fair dance between your magic attack, your magic accuracy, and your agility for the gun. And the bullet even helps too. Things like the Pixie Hairpin, even though they're high level 118, the dark magic element bonus is multiplied in different ways than normal. Has a massive effect. But essentially it's in goal to get us into the final tier of this as quickly as possible. Nothing too dangerous yet outside of the Corsair getting resisted and killed. He's going to attempt again. One mistake I'll point out here is he's not unweakened yet. So the shot he takes is going to get resisted. This is a mistake a lot of newer Corsairs will make when they're doing statue destruction. Resist, but this time I'm a little snappier to it and I managed to keep him alive. And so does the tank. You'll see some messages typed in the text chat. But we were talking on a voice channel chat too, so some things are typed depending on if somebody's currently talking. Some people don't talk on the voice chat because of accents or various reasons, but we'll type in there and we'll respond in chat. So you might see some things that might seem a little confusing. They're merely responses. Just a little bit of cleanup here. Working our way to the T2 Mega Boss. Checking to see if he had cleaned up any in there. And we're going to need those taken out too because we like to keep our melees there if there's any problems and when we prepare for Shuko buffs. The T2 Mega Boss under half health has an attack that ranges 25 yalms wide and 9 yalms high. So what that results in is usually instant death for your mages if they're in range of it, or any weak DPSs as well. Another resist. So this does happen sometimes. Less with death penalty, but it still will even happen for one like that. Now at this point, I'm a little bit expecting more resist on the Corsair, so I'm snappier with healing him. But this time, I pull all that hate and drop the red right away. Now the tank does get control, but I gotta try to get myself back up there because one little seismic stomp for AoE and I'm out of commission for a bit. So if you are gonna be a snappy healer like that, you need to have a set to survive those monsters coming at you for a moment. So sometimes, if you're not prepared like that, I would just suggest letting the Corsair die and arising them. But if you know that you can handle a few hits, by all means, save the Corsair, save 2 minutes of the run. But if you're going to die over, that might be even worse. So a little bit more cleanup here. It does look like the boss statue got taken out though. So you're not seeing all the clean shots the Corsair is getting, but I'm over here, maintaining the resisted shots and making sure that the DPS clean them up good. We're slowly working our way over to the Mog House. The goal is essentially to bring the T2 boss back over here and fight him over by the 2 shop huts while the DPS prepare here and get super buffed up, and then we send them all in at half health and hopefully take the boss down incredibly quickly. Another thing I'll point out here is you'll see a Shinobi in the mix. I call Shinobi last. Ninja are very dangerous here in the first 2 tiers. Meijin Gakure can hit everybody, and it tends to hit for insane amounts of magical damage. And it can dramatically slow down your run if you have to wait for several people's weakness. So be very cautious, use stun near the end. White mages can use Senker Sanctity. It's tough to time it, but it will save your party's ass. Paladins can also use Rampart, and Rune Fencers can use One for All. From the Bard's perspective at this point, there's a lot of double march, double minuet going on. As we rotate into the final tier, a madrigal or 2 may move in. Accuracy needs get much higher. I call for a swap over to the Corsair to move over to a Scholar party to try to get additional buffs towards helping. Just any little edge, because a lot of his resists would be at 3%, and it was so close to killing the statue anyway. They have most of it under control now. The red mages crowd controlled everything that's not being fought. And only 1 or 2 targets are being managed at a time from the tanks, and DPSs are cutting them down. After things here are managed, we will move on down the alleyway to the right. One thing I'd point out at this point is the Paladins are maintaining a large amount of hate through a new mechanic that was added last year. Paladin cures, essentially, when Majesty is up, will do area of effect and can hit other parties. So a properly refreshed Paladin can do massive amount of cures in helping the White Mage and making it a lot easier for them so that they more so have to focus on ailments, which can be more crippling sometimes. You'll notice as we get to the Shinobi, I come up here and drop a Synchro. It's unnecessary, but better safe than sorry. And you also notice that the tank put up a rampart. Same thing. So we come running over here now. So far, so good on this path. And to the alley. So up those stairs, there's an NM statue that has to be taken out. He's going to check it now, but I don't think he has enough TP, so I believe he comes back. As you're preparing and getting better at the runs, though, every minute helps. So you want to try to always get faster if you want to succeed with your link shell. So one way you can save a lot of time is just making sure that the Corsair has the best possible gear. But even if not, and you have to plow through this without Corsair skips, you can still do it. Everybody's just got to be coordinated and get through these mobs quickly. At this point, there are 3 more statues we have to take out before we can prepare for the T2 fight. So it's not too much of a matter, and we still have plenty of time on the clock. That's 1. I believe we actually have no more resist problems. I'm not quite sure if it was a better roll or what exactly had changed. There's 2. One thing I'll point out at this point is the reason we all remain here is in case of resist. They do happen, even with the best in slot Corsair. You never want to assume everything's going to work perfectly. So it is standing here at the moment, but that's a good thing because things are going good. When things go bad, all of a sudden you need to react quickly. You can't really have anybody AFKing during these stages if you want to succeed. That pull goes well. So now we're clear. So I call everybody to get to the T2 boss positions. That involves the mages running up to the rampart and the melees running to the grass area. And they just go finish off that bogey now, since all the shots have been taken. I have him move, the Corsair move back to the original DPS party, and the Summoner back to the DPSs that have a little less defenses, as we're going to use Alexander on the final charge. Up this little secret alley. There usually is a boss statue up here that has to be addressed. That was taken care of earlier. And the boss gets fought between these 2 shop stands. So you want to kind of angle yourself as close against the wall as you possibly can. So at this point, I generally look on the list and make sure that everybody's present and in range other than the tanks. And I also like to have the red mage follow them in case something goes wrong. Once it's set up, you call clear to pull. I don't do super buffs yet. I usually have everybody on regular buffs until the mob gets to 52%. That's right about before the aura starts, and things get very dangerous. Here come the two tanks. They try to stay positioned in between the two shops. If you move too far away from them, you won't be able to get healed. Part of the reason we do this positioning is to be above the 9 yam limitation for the mob special attack. Everybody moves in. And then once it seems like there's not a lot of danger, I get a focus target set on it so I can prepare to tell people to stop damage. Much to my pleasant surprise this run, the mob is getting its ass thoroughly kicked. I'm usually just sticking with cure 3s on the tank and a little bit of touch-up cures in the other parties if the other healers are having a tough time. He's almost at 52. I call stop. At this point, the tanks are on it, and the DPSs run back to the grass to prepare. The bards run down there and give them super buffs, and the Geomancer prepares to bolster. Super buffs, for those unfamiliar with bard, are Soul Voice, Clarion Call, Nitro, which is Nightingale and Troubadour at the same time. And usually, if you have it, Honor March, Blade Madrigal, Minuet 4 and 5, and Victory March. If a mob has an incredibly threatening attack that's elemental, I would probably pull one of the Minuets for a Carol. The Corsairs at this point would use Samurai and Chaos Roll. And the Geomancer, being in the tank party, would use stuff like Torpor, Frailty, Wilt. We're calling to make sure that the other white mage gets back up to the top. The AoEs from the mob can be incredibly dangerous once the aura's up. Another side thing we prepare, we have a very talented summoner. So we make sure that the summoner uses Alexander right at the start of the clutch. And how fast goes down? Barely had to cast a heal. Okay, I had to cast more than a few heals. Always prioritize your tank. If you're a DPS healer, always prioritize your top DPS. You'll see that one enfeeble that everybody has in my party. That's an aura. And he goes down like a brick. Now usually this can take you up to a half hour. But as you get better and as your people's gear and coordination's really good, you'll crush it. And we are transitioning to T3, heading to the first circle, the water circle. Now each of these have 3 lesser Volte mobs and 1 boss type mob that's holding an SE5 type weapon. They all have job types that are pretty clearly called, and then the SE5 type has a slightly unique name. Each circle has 2 groups of these mobs. Yeah, I have to cast a race on my tanks. They were still gravitied. But at this point, we prepare to pull these little groups with 1 tank. The other tank takes on the 3 lesser guys, and the DPS group those up. And then everybody gangs up on the final person. Rinse, wash, and repeat. Until you get to the circle stage. Every mob has a little bit of different behaviors that I try to address. The warrior in particular is dangerous. Black mages are dangerous with sleeps. This is where red mages are invaluable with their silences and their enfeebles. Stuff like Distract and Frazzle make a lot more possible against these types of mobs. Pets seem to be sleepable, but the Volte only seem vulnerable to petrification. The NM types are much more sturdy, so when you get to them, if you are the tank healer, you're going to want to focus on your main tank. There's going to be a lot of skill chains used against them. And some of those skill chains aren't going to do a lot of damage, but some of them are going to knock your tank into the red right away. These mobs behave on the same rules as the players do. One advantage of that is the ninja. The Mijin Gakure only hits one target. It's a little different than the T1 and T2 ninjas. The one thing that I'll point out as we get closer to the end of the SU 5-weapon priest here is each Halo has a ghost version of the final boss. And you can't do any damage or anything to it. You can, I think, enfeeble it, but essentially the goal for us is to have a tank, or essentially you could even have a thief or somebody pull it and kite that. A secondary tank then will flash onto the circle and get as much hate build up as they possibly can from 15 yalms away. And what that does is it prevents the circle from using its special area of effect move. And notice that he's using Sentinel and all these AoE moves to get hate. That allows the DPSs to deal their damage safely. If this wasn't being done, there would be a massive amount of damage going onto the DPSs, and they can die very quickly. You'll know it's happening when somebody pulls that hate. But essentially, this is the process that you follow for each circle. 8 mobs, 2 NMs, 1 circle. There are 8 total circles, and when those circles are taken out, it takes out 10% of the damage reduction that the final boss has and 1 element weakness that they're invulnerable to. So we move on to the fire circle. One of the bigger threats I'd point here is that the pet jobs be a little dangerous. The Beastmaster, one of our runs, almost wiped our entire alliance with the cluster blowing up. Almost as dangerous as a Mijin Gakure and TT. Oof. One flub here is I definitely did miss my Paladin's request for some ailment healing. I think I was saying instructions about the dangers of the Beastmaster type class. But the most dangerous ones are going to be your Blue Mage, your Red Mage, the Beastmaster. The Ninja can still kill your tank, but just your tank usually, single target. But there's not much else to say about this. You really just want to focus on speed. Make sure you rise people if they get dead. 2 tanks are handy. Make sure you're focusing on healing both of them. Stand between them if you're the healer. And everybody's got to stay focused and fast, so you can keep the momentum going or you'll run out of time. That being said, I'm just pretty much gonna stay radio silent until we get to the final boss. This is the second of 8 circles, so there's a lot of running around and cleaning up to go on. There's one other thing I'll point out though. Some of these guys, or some of these circles rather, are hiding a goblin called Oryx. If you manage to kill him, we'll give you some extra medals, but he does have a tendency to run away. And you will find him later, but he can also run away from you then too. You do tend to want to fight him though, because otherwise he'll just toss bombs, and it's a lot of damage and annoying. But enjoy the show until we get to the final boss. You usually want to play until you're at about half hour, and any remaining time from there, you could work on your mask or anything. But if you go in on your boss before half hour, they start getting access to a very nasty move after 30 minutes. So as we get to the final boss, all 8 circles have been removed. Everybody comes and starts to gather. And buffs are prepared. At this point, only 2 mistakes are going to be made that I would put a lot of emphasis on. The first mistake is simple. Everybody's getting buffs up, the tank goes up to prepare hate, and then a bunch of people think the battle has begun and start engaging. This is a little bit of an early fire, and it happens from time to time, but you just kind of got to go with it. Once things have started, time to get in there. Another trick I'll point out is you see the Beastmaster with the slug there is using an HP down 10% move. And if you were looking at my mask earlier, it's jumped. This is a very handy way to get 2 million damage off right away. At that point, the other move is very effective for keeping everybody safe and damage. You just want to make sure if you're a white mage, you stay about 15 yalms away. Avoid Circle Blade or whatever AoE that they have. Keep plenty of Echo Drops because it can silence. Keep a good eye on your main tank. Occasionally, some of the DPSs might get hit a little hard. Try to silent as you can for this particular zone. And you want super buffs, which should be good by now. It's usually about an hour to come back on to your DPS parties. A few things that come up with the final boss is he can summon, or she can summon Odin at any time. And the way that you survive this is by having re-raise up. Instead of dying, you'll lose re-raise instead. The other thing is that at 79, 59, 39, and 19, the boss will summon 4 friends. Those 4 friends vary. They're usually the lesser form of the Volte. But 2 of them in particular are incredibly dangerous, and I will specify what's up with them now. The white mage has access to Benediction. That heals him for about 100,000 damage. Not the end of the world, but not exactly something you want to have to work down again either. However, the Corsair can heal him for 20% of his health. This is very troublesome, and removes all of his ailments too, which Benediction does as well. So the goal is to have the secondary tank get those particular 2 troublesome mobs very far away from the main tank. And this can be a little bit difficult, but it's worth taking the time to do so, because you'll add a lot of headache if you allow those moves to go off on the main boss. That being said, those things and Odin, there is not much else to say other than watch the health. When the mobs come out, you want to keep a heavy eye on both of your tanks. If you're a DPS, you want to watch if a DPS pulls hate. And if there's any mages or anything wandering in range by accident. But there's not much else really to say. You want to just stay focused, make sure everybody's buffs are on, make sure the tanks are okay, make sure the DPSs aren't doing too much damage and yanking hate past the hate cap. Sub-Dragoon is very good for this, to lose some of your hate and shed it. But there's only really one other thing I'd want to point out, so I'm just enjoy the show, and we're going to wait till the very end to point out one critical mistake that happens this run, and essentially does have a very negative effect on it, which I'll explain at the end. So at this final point, everybody's addressing the final mobs. We've moved the Corsair away and taken care of them, and the White Mage. And all the little Voltes here are almost gone. But one critical mistake happens. Look at this, their names go to orange. One of our players accidentally hit the call for help button. Now, in a zone that only 18 players can go into, who would help us? I'm not sure why this feature is still available for such functions, but here we are. So I was a little thrown off by this and let my tank die, as I was wondering what the heck just happened, because I'd never seen this. So it's something I definitely wanted to address. Make sure that nobody accidentally hits assist, or rather call for help, because this happens. Now I will point out, I pop Benediction, we get some bodies back up, and even with 10 minutes still on the clock, we pull it together, because we want this bastard dead. But there is one tragic thing that stopped happening at the point that call for help was made. And you'll notice as the drop stopped. It's always good to stay focused, even when you think you might lose. It's always a good learning opportunity. But we do recover. Everybody gets back in. And we start chopping away at the last percentages. We cut it very, very close this round though for the kill. And he dies with about 2-3 minutes on the clock. I'd say 3 minutes. No drops in the pool, just the ones from before call for help was made. But we got the kill, and if call for help wasn't made, everybody who was in this party that didn't have the Mask of Light would have the Mask of Light. So I still call this a win, but there's a very important lesson there. Always make sure that your Corsair setups are very good. They won't always hit, but you can speed it up there. And there's some speed ups that can be done in the T2 as well with the Corsair pools. Both of our boss runs in T2 and T1 were very well done. And even the T3 was really well done outside of that last little mistake. There are other little minor mistakes that happen to point out and to look out for. But the biggest thing is to never give up and to stay focused as a team and to take what you're doing seriously and to respect the time of the others that you're playing with. So we all position and take a little cry here because we didn't get the credit this time for the run. But thank you so much for watching and enjoy the rest of your day. Shuko and the Tenacious Saints out for the day.